You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There's a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for January 14th, 2025. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where we have seen no evidence that bad people can be smashed, destroyed, or exposed out of existence by using giant yellow fonts and exclamation points. It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal. And we want to make sure that we remember all of our friends and loved ones and strangers in California who are suffering, continuing to suffer terribly from the fires out there that are just apocalyptic.
And John Amato, everyone knows John Amato lost his house.
Yep.
And I've spoken with him many times since then. I talk to him every day anyway. He is the vlog father of Crooks and Liars. Mm-hmm. And he was meeting with FEMA today. Things seem to be moving along quite efficiently, it seems to me.
Huh.
In
That's
his
so weird.
world. He's got a hotel room. Uh-huh. He's had a scheduled meeting appointment with FEMA this morning. And so there seems to be a competent government response from my perspective, sitting here in Illinois, looking at one person I know. Mm-hmm. Things seem to be moving along. So, and of course, these Santa Ana winds are unpredictable. Another colleague of mine said, we were expecting hurricane force winds and this was in greater LA.
Right.
Last night, and they didn't arrive, but our power went out. And I thought, this colleague of mine just said, I thought it would be over. Power went out, the winds are going to come, and we're going to have fire. But the winds did not transpire, and their power did come back on. And so one more day, you are living day to day while these winds are going on.
Yes, you are.
It's just not something anyone can control.
No. And firefighters from all over the world and from Canada and Mexico have shown up to risk their lives and work their asses off for a country that really doesn't like them very much and wishes they didn't exist or wants to invade them.
The noisy people, the noisy racists in this country just seem to be dominant at this point.
They do.
And
they do.
That's got to stop. That's why we're here. We're here to be noisy in a different direction.
Yeah, we're going to be noisy in the opposite direction. In fact, we're going to lead off today with a news item. I know we usually do a news roundup. We're not going to do that today. But there is a news item that we figure makes some history, actually. Mm-hmm. Under President Joe Biden's leadership, the economy has added jobs every full month since he was in office. This is the first time that's happened since the government began collecting records in 1939. Quote, 0 months with job losses, said his press secretary, Karen Jean-Pierre.
And this is from Yahoo News. Quote, which man's precedent had more impact on people's lives? Biden's, hands down, and in a good way. Which one was more compelling as reality TV trumps? If you like your entertainment contentious and tawdry, with subplots about hush money, business fraud, and possibly determinative interference in an election over 8 years ago. Faced with that choice, American voters made their preference clear in 2024, and I would add by 1.5% or less.
Right.
Or maybe they just revealed that they haven't been paying any attention at all for the last decade, unquote.
Yeah.
Or maybe other people have been distracting them from what they actually should be paying attention to.
Yeah, the people who have no opinion about anything and don't really know but still vote all seem to have pretty fixed political opinions about a lot of stuff. So they're getting their opinion, they're getting their information. These independents are getting their information from somewhere, just not anywhere in the real world.
I had a chance to run by a sports podcast that just appeared. on my screen as I was scrolling the internet, and the sports podcast was talking about, I know why. It was Ohio State. And I was trying to find out if our incoming Vice President, J.D. Vance, was actually going to skip the inauguration to go to the Ohio State game next Monday. Mm-hmm. And it turns out, he was joking about that. He said, I wonder how people would feel if I skipped the inauguration, ha, 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 because my team, my alma mater, is playing in the championships Monday night.
Right.
And as a process of seeing that, this sports podcaster was talking about that and noting the number of people that will be flying into South Central Ohio, in order to watch the game. And that J.D. Vance won't have to worry about flying Spirit Airlines, ha, 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 ha. And he shows a old picture. This podcaster showed an old picture of Ohio State fans waiting in line at an airport and says, yeah, you did a real good job, Pete Buttigieg. And this is like,
just random.
I don't know when this picture was taken. It could have been taken 10 years ago.
Just taking random shots.
But took a random shot at Pete Buttigieg because he's a dude.
Right. Yeah. And that's where you get those stupid opinions from independent voters who don't pay attention to anything. No, they absorb this garbage through their skin. Now, where do the sportscaster get the idea that it's okay to take shots at Pete Buttigieg on the air?
Yeah.
Well,
and not blame Spirit Airlines, because that was the point. Was people flying Spirit Airlines, and it's Pete Buttigieg's fault.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Well, and that's why today we watched a manifestly unfit sexual predator and serial liar go through the motions of getting his new job almost unscathed. And it wasn't Donald Trump. It was a guy named Pete Hegseth. He who should have been vice president, Tim Kaine, did a fine job grilling Hegseth about sexual assault allegations and infidelity. He also pointed out that the GOP members were whining about reductions of military standards while using a chart that clearly misspelled the word military on the chart about the military.
A Republican chart?
Yeah. Big letters, real big letters. Now, Democratic Senators Mark Kelly and our very own Tammy Duckworth and Mazie Hirono also did quite well. Hegseth just deflected all of this by claiming that all allegations were anonymous smears or just refusing to answer questions. He skated on meeting with Democratic senators in private, even though our Senator Tammy Duckworth made it very clear that she gave him many, many opportunities to come and just sit with her in private to talk these matters over. Fuck him. He doesn't care. He's going to get through. So why bother to talk to Democrats? And he generally just ran out the clock during the hearing, which Republican senators were really cool with. Mm-hmm. And he will probably be rubber stamped into the job of running the largest military in human history.
And making sure that all military contracts go to Elon Musk.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have listened to the indignant responses all over the interwebs. And seriously, what did people expect? Shaking your fist at empty air and declaring that this was all beneath contempt. Well, sure it was, but that's like yelling at a blizzard. Yeah. After all, Trump doesn't give a shit about defending the country or NATO or women soldiers or sexual predators or military justice. And around 80 million meatheads voted for him, so why should Trump's nominee even care about those things? Fuck it. No, these people just don't care about those things, and they are in charge.
But a lot of them are vets. I mean... Yeah. No. That's the sad thing.
Joni Ernst
from Iowa. Yeah.
Who sexual predation in the military was one of her big issues. Mm-hmm. Apparently she's satisfied that Pete Hegseth promised to stick some guy in an office somewhere who'd handle these things and just let him go past. So, thank you for your service. That's awesome. Yeah. Today was also the day that Jack Smith report dropped. And this is from Brother Charlie Pierce at Esquire. Quote, Special Counsel Jack Smith's final report says it all. Voters saved Trump from prosecution. Long about 1 a.m. on Tuesday, Attorney General Merrick Garland finally reached into his apparently bottomless bag of fucks and found it empty. So finally, Merrick Garland did the thing. He dropped 137 pages of light reading on the country, and while the special counsel's report on the once and future president's involvement in the insurrection of January 6, 2021 tells us very little we didn't already know, it bristles with enough detailed evidence to fill in any remaining gaps in the public knowledge, especially in regards to the white shoe element of the insurrection. Jack Smith is not selling wolf tickets. The man had the goods, unquote. Mm-hmm. All of that happened today. Mm-hmm.
And over the weekend, it's no surprise that our legacy media let us down again. This is from our own Heather at Crooks and Liars. Quote, Jake Tapper gives lying GOP senator a pass on support for Pam Bondi. Here we go again. CNN's Jake Tapper allows another Republican senator to dance around his questions and lie to his face. This time it was Alabama Senator Katie Britt. We all remember Britt from her infamous State of the Union response, which was trolled perfectly by Scarlett Johansson on Saturday Night Live. Yes, we do.
Mm-hmm. Today, yesterday, or sometime in the recent past, Elon Musk decided to go on his social media platform and call Governor Gavin Newsom a subtard because free speech. And Donald Trump and the entire conservative media ecosystem continued to spread bold-faced lies and toxic slander about the fires in California.
And may I add that Greg Kelly actually, Greg Genius Kelly at Newsmax gave the game away.
Yeah.
He flat out said the silver lining to this fire is that it prevents Gavin Newsom from being president of the United States.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Which, I got to tell you something, 3.5 years is a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that bridge in Baltimore got back up online in 9 months, 10 months.
In record time. And they clear the harbor.
You rebuild California in record time and start doing, say in 2020, late 2027, you start doing ribbon cuttings in Pacific Palisades. I'm sorry. And he has, Gavin Newsom, we all love our J.B. Pritzker over here.
Right.
Gavin Newsom has shown determination and the ability to plan. And he's got a surplus in his budget.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And I know that Republicans have said they're probably going to play games with disaster relief. This is what Trump tried to do in 2020. How many people voted for me in California? Well, fuck those people. And somebody had to actually... And the 5 million registered Republicans in California. Right.
I guess fuck them too?
Well, someone on his staff apparently had to break down the fact that, there are Republican voters in Orange County and they voted for you. Oh, okay. Well, then I guess it's okay to help them out.
Yeah.
But that kind of autocratic, tyrannical, fascist behavior is what the next 4 years are going to be like.
It's a smash and grab presidency, and it's all about how much money can I get and not give to other people that don't like me. Yep, right. That's it.
And if you don't like me, you can forget about any help from the federal government, which is why governors are going to become really important over the next 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where we are in Illinois, as you might have heard, we had a blizzard and then a smaller snowfall, and it's just cold and dreary. And honestly, we're both kind of tired.
Oh, man.
Both wiped out today. It's just been... And I know that everyone out there is tired. Everyone out there has been doing a lot of physical and psychological and emotional heavy lifting.
Yeah.
We've all been, chopping wood and carrying water, and we're kind of tired. So today, we're going to break down the newest entry in the marketplace of media startups that describe themselves using adjectives like upstart and fierce and independent. We just love those people.
I'm an independent.
Those folks. This one is called The Contrarian. And since it's actually being founded by a bunch of writers, as fellow writers, we take words very seriously. So right off the bat, we think it's important to understand what the term contrarian actually means and why it was a really bad idea to call themselves that.
The contrarian. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Contrarian is a noun that means, quote, a person who takes a contrary position or attitude, unquote. The example given by the online dictionary is, quote, anyone who thinks that most of what the public believes is wrong would be called a contrarian.
There you go.
Unquote. And this is from co-founder Jennifer Rubin describing what the Contrarian Substack believes its mission to be. Now, Jennifer Rubin just resigned from the Washington Post.
Right.
Along with a lot of other people.
Right.
Quote, we've watched as corporate and billionaire owners of media outlets abuse their audience's loyalty and undercut journalism's vital role in a free democracy. Instead of safeguarding democratic values, they have enabled the gravest threats to democracy, Donald Trump and his allies, at the very time when a robust and independent press is most essential. We need an alternative, truly independent outlet that is unafraid of the administration and unwilling to equivocate or bend the knee, unquote.
Cool. That's great. We all want that, don't we, Bluegal? Mm-hmm. We all want that. Mm-hmm. This is from her co-founder, Norm Eisen, describing the Contrarian Substack, what they believe its mission to be. Quote, our vision for the Contrarian is a defiant and uncompromising platform free from false equivalence. The voices we'll be featuring are diverse across parties and generations, connected by the shared belief that we need an unshackled media in order to meet this moment as we face an existential threat to American democracy, unquote. So, okay, all right, so far so good, right? This all sounds very promising, very, very business planish, very, you submitted your proposal to the funders or whatever else. This is all great visioning, as we used to say when I worked in corporate and America and government. However, this is from Joyce Vance, who we like very much, describing what the Contrarian believes its mission to be. Vance's own platform, which is called the Democracy Index, is being merged into the Contrarian. This is Joyce Vance talking. We live in an era where much of our news, our politics, and our daily interactions have fallen into, say it with me now, Bluegal, tribalism.
And when we were rehearsing our show today, I went, uh-oh. And then I realized that Driftglass had put uh-oh in our notes.
Yes. Yep. Uh-oh. There's that word.
Because tribalism is in our house is what's known as an uh-oh.
Yeah, exactly. Tribalism is code for both sides do it.
Yes, it is.
That's what it is. That is. I don't know what the original intent was behind the person who did, but that's what that word means. And seeing it in this unshackled independent is like, oh no, come on now. I bit into the fruit and it was not ripe. Yeah. Anyway, back to Joyce Vance. Instead of acquiring information, facts about issues, and thinking about how to interpret them, what they mean, increasingly people adopt a view of their tribe, unquote. You know, people adopt the view of their tribe. Just people out there in the world.
Yes.
People and their
tribe.
Around
the world. Yes.
Unquote.
Both sides do it. Yes.
So back to Joyce Vance. One of the hallmarks of the Trump administration was chaos and exhaustion. Absolutely. People with jobs and families to take care of couldn't keep up. Many gave up out of numbness, frustration, and overload. That's a bad thing when the voters are the ultimate guardrail. They're not.
They're not. Wait.
Definitely not. The difference between a democratic future and not, unquote. And I thought, this is just weird.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Yeah. I know this is the mental construction of a lot of Beltway people who want to excuse voters, maybe let them off the hook, maybe, set them aside. Maybe the voters aren't the problem. Maybe it's just communication, messaging, But the idea that the first Trump administration left people with jobs and families, who couldn't pay attention to anything, have no time for anything else except maybe listening to sports podcasts or watching Ohio State or whatever else. But they have no time to pay attention for anything. The idea that the Trump administration left those people exhausted, frustrated, and numb, right? So after a 4-year...
Not the people who had to Google, did Biden drop out?
No.
November.
Those people were unaware that anything was happening at all.
Right, right.
But those same people, after a 4-year respite under Biden, decided to vote for this asshole a second time.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of confused by how we can have, on the one hand, all these people who are exhausted and tired and don't want anything to do with politics. But you know what? We're going to try this Trump thing all over again. That doesn't make a lick of sense to me.
Nope. This is more of Joyce Vance. Quote, out of necessity, we'll be building the airplane a bit while we're flying. Although we've studied Project 2025 and paid close attention to the transition period, Trump is, to put it mildly, not a traditional policymaker and not a traditional president. We should expect to encounter issues across the spectrum of procedure and substance. Our goal will be to make understanding them manageable and digestible.
And this is where I have some bad news for the Contrarian.
Yeah.
Unless your publication is on the spin rack in the supermarket checkout line, along with diets and celebrity news, and tits. Don't forget the tits. And tits. No one you're trying to reach is going to read this. No one is going to read this.
I'm gonna push back on that just a little bit, Driftglass. Because I think this contrarian Substack is designed for people who used to watch Morning Joe up until Election Day, inside the Beltway,
right,
and visiting Trump at Mar-a-Lago was a bridge too far, but they still want Beltway, common wisdom.
Right. Of course. I agree. My point being that those are people you've already reached.
Yes.
Those are not the exhausted people with families and jobs
who
have no time to follow politics at all. And I don't know, I got to run out and get milk.
And we're going to make it digestible for those people. No, you're absolutely
never
not.
You really, I understand the impulse. I appreciate the sentiment. But the people you are trying to reach, your own chartering statement says you're trying to reach, are the very people who are not going to read anything you have to say because they're just not interested in that level of communication at all.
No.
Unless you wrap it in, a sports podcast or tits,
Right, exactly.
Your idea of Tom Hartman
being read by a stripper.
Stripper reading Tom Hartman quotes is perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the tail end of the quote. The Contrarian's motto is not owned by anybody. Oh, Jesus. In recognition of the need for independent space where contributors can respond with unencumbered candor to the autocratic impulses of the incoming administration, unquote. I don't understand the whole building the airplane while you're flying thing. I can understand.
I think I do. I think I do.
Okay.
Here's the deal. I think these guys, they're not saying it, but I think what they're trying to do is redesign the Substack experience.
Okay.
And that a lot of this is about Substack and not about journalism or truth or digesting or anything else. It's about understanding that people who with jobs and families don't have $300 to subscribe to 900 or, I'm doing the math here, 1,500 Substacks. It's $5 a time, right? Right. 1,500 Substack. So, $1,500 to subscribe to 300 Substacks. That's the way to look at it. Okay. And I had one of my colleagues at Crooks and Liars said, I'm really glad that Joyce White Vance has decided to just join with them and do her thing with them rather than, okay, we're going to have a Jen Substack and we're going to have a Joyce White Vance Substack and an Andrew Weissman Substack and so forth, because people can't keep up with that. So I think they at the Contrarian, maybe they should have called themselves the Amalgamation,
The accretion.
Because putting yourself under one roof, under the Substack umbrella, makes a lot of sense from a work standpoint, from an audience standpoint.
Sure.
And I was going to I'll get into more of this when we get to finishing up on talking about what all this means, because you and I have some other opinions about it, but I'll hold those for later.
And I do understand all that. I know that they're talking about, we're going to have, it's going to be all singing, all dancing, kick line. They're going to have podcasts. We're going to have presentation, which is all fine. What they're talking about building is called the Bulwark. What they're talking about building is called Pod Save America. So
it's all the same product.
It's all the same, and it's all many of the same kind of circle of people who all know each other and have all known each other for years. Yeah, and that's my critique of the whole building the airplane while you're flying thing. That's a thing you say in business or in government where we don't know quite what we're doing. We're going to jump off the building, and on the way down, we're going to figure this shit out before we crash. It'd be great.
Right.
Now, these people have all been in media for decades. All of them have been in media for decades, and they all have friends in media, in production, in design, in publication, in editing, in videography. They're not just, this isn't liberal blogosphere circa 2000.
Right.
These people all have a lot of experience in this stuff. And the landscape is already littered with examples of media startups, especially examples of upstart independent media things that promise to do all the things.
Right. Right.
Now, as we were chatting, we're reminded of, for example, the late, great Eric Boehlert, who we missed terribly, who passed away in a freak accident 3 years ago. God, it's been 3 years, at the age of 57. He was the founding editor of Salon magazine, and a fellow with Media Matters and a former writer with Rolling Stone and Billboard magazine. So he was this sort of guy, except he was really doing the hard work. And Salon, if you recall, was also going to be an independent media entity that would do all the things. And it's a husk now. I don't know that anybody who reads Salon, maybe many people do, maybe I'm just out of the loop, but Salon is just, nobody goes there anymore. Now, Media Matters, on the other hand, was also going to be an independent media entity. And despite being attacked every day by the conservative media machine and sued by Elon Musk for, pointing stuff out that was true, Media Matters is still around and still doing God's work. So there's an example of a model that works.
And they have a funding structure that works also.
Right. Yeah. And what? It's a liberal thing. Yeah. It's not a contrarian thing.
Nope.
It's not an independent thing. It's a liberal thing. And they have a very clear mission.
They also, at Media Matters, always make the main thing the main thing.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Their main thing is going after Newsmax and Fox and the right-wing ecosphere and pointing out that it's a script and it's a playbook.
That's right.
I mean, the president of Media Matters was on TV this weekend saying, this California fire thing, I could have called this 4 months ago.
Yep.
How this was going to go, because
they
are all climate science deniers and they make money off of oil, and they're investors in that, and so they're going to use this as a opportunity to bash Democrats and deny that climate has anything to do with it.
That's right. And we have all learned from people like Media Matters, liberal outlets like Media Matters, to spot this stuff as it's happening. When it's just when it's taking off, just when you see the first few sparks of it happening, like, I recognize that. I know what that is.
Yep.
And so we've become a lot more media literate because of people like that. Thanks to them.
Yep. No. So you remember when Politico was the upstart independent media thingy that promised to do all the things? Here's their January 12th headline this week. Quote, Republicans saved democracy once. Will they do it again? I just can't.
Yeah.
But the lead is Trump's cabinet nominations will be a critical first test, signaling whether American democracy will survive his second term. Unquote.
Yeah. It was all those Republicans that saved us.
Are going to stand up to Donald Trump. No, they're not.
I thought, I looked through the whole article. I was waiting for them to cite Lincoln.
Yeah.
Because that's the other example of a Republican, the only other example of a Republican saving democracy I could think of. But it wasn't. It was just, how those good Republicans saved us from the bad Republicans? Like, no. They're all awful. Now, Axios, we're going to go down a few of these things. Axios was also going to be an upstart media thingy that promised to do all the things, an independent organization that was going to do all the stuff. The Huffington Post was also an upstart media thing. Remember, citizen journalists, send us your stuff and we will monetize it and tell you to go to hell. That promised to do all the things.
They did side boobs. They did a lot of side boobs, though.
I know. Believe me. I mentioned this before. I went to the to when Arian Huffington was in town. She met with citizen journalists and made her pitch at Columbia College.
Yeah.
And I went to her. And I took pictures. I listened to her like sidestepping and dancing around. And what's going on? Oh, you're going to get exposure. You're going to get links. You're going to get everything except money.
Yeah.
And that was the large room she was in. Then she went to the small room after that to talk to the money people. And believe me, citizen journalism was not what they talked about in the small room. It was monetize. How do we monetize this? We're going to get a lot of stuff.
I saw Tina Brown at Blog Her.
Yeah. Oh, God.
And it was the same thing.
Yeah.
It was, we're going to wrap ads around content. I'm never going back to print for the rest of my life until she did. Yeah. And I'm never going back to print because we can wrap advertising. This was what she said to the funders.
Right. It's a different pitch.
We can wrap advertising around content so well in such unique ways that no one can avoid the ads.
Right.
That was the point. And so she could sell ads in ways she could never sell ads before.
That was the point. That was the whole point.
Yep.
Another independent media outfit was going to do all the things was The Intercept. Remember The Intercept? And you know what? After they finally dumped Glenn Greenwald, they've done some good work. And, awkward transition here. Speaking of spleenwald, and the word contrarian. This is the headline from The Nation, May 18th, 2022. Quote, Tucker Carlson's mouthpiece, Glenn Greenwald. Ian Higgins comes on the Time of Monsters podcast to discuss the contrarian pundit who is now whitewashing racism. Unquote. Wow. So Glenn Greenwald is a contrarian too. Wow. Oh, and speaking of people named Glenn, back in 2015, you might recall when Glenn Beck was pretending to have mended his sorry, sinful ways because he thought that the wind had shifted and the Never Trump movement was the way of the future, and that would fill his pockets now. The Week magazine asked the musical question, is it time to forgive Glenn Beck? The answer is no. And that was the first article I wrote about not trusting Never Trumpers, was about all the press Glenn Beck was getting for reforming his ways. But the article in The Week did caution skepticism because, quote, given his contrarian tendencies, unquote. So Glenn Beck, like Glenn Greenwald, is also a contrarian. Bluegal, I wonder who else is a contrarian.
Well, if you just search for the word online, the first hit you get is not the Driftglass blog.
No, it isn't. Definitely
It is not. It is this. Quote, The Contrarian, Peter Thiel, and Silicon Valley's Pursuit of Power. A hardcover book published September 21st, 2021 by Max Chafkin. A biography of venture capitalist and entrepreneur Peter Thiel, the enigmatic, controversial, and hugely influential power broker who sits at the dynamic intersection of tech, business, and politics.
So many adjectives.
Max Chafkin's The Contrarian is much more than a consistently shocking biography of Peter Thiel, the most important investor in tech and a key supporter of the Donald Trump presidency. It's also a disturbing history of Silicon Valley that will make you reconsider the ideological foundations of America's relentless engine of creative destruction, said Brad Stone, author of The Everything Store and Amazon Unbound. Unquote. That's Peter Thiel, contrarian.
So he's a contrarian too. Well, this is the December 23rd issue of this year of the Globe and Mail promises to take its readers, quote, inside Elon Musk's contrarian hiring philosophy, unquote.
So this is last year? This is just last month?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I think that's right. But yeah, the Globe and Mail did say Elon Musk's contrarian hiring philosophy. So Elon Musk, contrarian. Now, you might remember back during the before time, well, if you dare pierce the veil and look into the before time as we do every week, when the existence of actual contrarian media in the form of the liberal blogosphere spooked the crap out of the legacy media. We scared them badly. Mm-hmm. We had respectable conservative beltway hacks like David Brooks calling us crazy, literally going on the Chris Matthews show calling us crazy, referring to us as burn it all down flamers, who were the moral equivalent of the corrupt drunk scumbag Tom DeLay. We were the Tom DeLays of the left.
Yeah.
Because we had launched Ned Lamont's campaign and beaten Joe Lieberman in a fair
and that was just not
open election.
That
was
thing.
Unacceptable.
How dare we? How dare we?
And there was, I could just sense the long arm of Bibi Netanyahu reaching into David Brooks's head and pointing him, going, go get him, David. And as we all know, David Brooks's son serves in the military, but not the U.S. military, right? You know that he serves in the Israeli Defense Force. That's where David Brooks's kid went to serve king and country. So, and that's got us in Dutch with David Brooks.
Right.
And he wrote a whole column about what monstrous Shia versus Sunni assholes the liberal blogosphere was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Joe Scarborough dismissed us all as Cheeto-smeared losers living in our mother's basement.
Wearing bathrobes. Smearing Cheeto dust on our bathrobes.
On our T-shirts and bathrobes. Of course, it turned out we were right about everything, and Joe Scarborough was wrong. But, Joe Scarborough is Joe Scarborough. And when that didn't work, the legacy media tried to co-opt the vibe of blogging by hiring some bloggers themselves. And the results were, as they say, mixed.
Well, what kind of bloggers did they decide to hire? Let's talk about that. This is from the Washington Post, which we've been talking about all along.
Yes, we have.
March 25th, 2006, quote, Washington Post blogger quits after plagiarism accusations.
Ooh.
A 24-year-old blogger for the Washington Post, which was not Driftglass, no, it wasn't, was Ben Dominic. He resigned yesterday after being confronted with evidence that he had plagiarized articles in other publications. His resignation came after writing 6 blog items in the 3 days he worked for Red America, a blog that the Post created to offer a conservative viewpoint on its website.
There's so much in that sentence. There's so much
in that sentence.
The seeds of so much destruction are right there for you to read. Yep.
I know. Let's hire a conservative blogger.
Yeah. Without vetting him in any way. Yeah.
Yes. Mr. Dominic, who had worked in the Bush administration and was a founder of the conservative blog redstate.com, came under heavy criticism from liberal bloggers who called his political views extreme.
Uh-huh.
They first pointed to previous comments by Mr. Dominic, who recently called Coretta Scott King a communist.
Yeah. That word's making a big comeback, isn't it, Bluegal?
It is. It's all of a sudden a big comeback because apparently California is 100% communist.
Right. And socialist isn't making it anymore.
No.
Socialist is not having the effect that it used to have. So now we're going to communist. Communist, pedophile, baby murderers. That's what we are. I wonder whatever happened to that young contrarian, Bluegal. That young
He married
Ben.
John McCain's daughter.
Oh, that's right. He married John McCain's daughter, and he founded a contrarian publication called The Federalist, which I guarantee you, if you looked up The Federalist and Contrarian, you'll get 800 hits. Because what the fuck? Everyone's a contrarian. But this whole
funds The Federalist, Driftglass?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Who funds The Federalist? Perennial question. All of this gets very confusing when you consider things like this 2011 interview with the Tampa Bay Times, in which Fox News liberal punching bag Juan Williams described his being hired by Fox News just hours after being fired by NPR as, quote, the House Contrarian, unquote.
Is that what they're calling it?
Yes, he's the House Contrarian.
Oh my God!
And he's hired as a Fox News strategy so they'll have technically have a liberal there to beat up on. So they can call themselves fair and balanced. And everyone knows it. Even Juan Williams knows goddamn well what his role is.
What his job is, yes.
And then there's this from the Hussman School of Journalism and Media, who I'd never heard of before until today. February 13th, 2018. Quote, Tucker Carlson, one of the world's greatest contrarians. To deliver UNC Hussman's 2018 Park Lecture, unquote.
Is that why he went to Russia and sucked Putin's dick? Is because he's so contrarian?
He's very contrarian, yes. Again, a word like independent that has no meaning whatsoever, except whatever meaning you care to pour into it and impose on it. Yeah.
All right, quickly, some more examples of the term contrarian in the media. CBS News, December 29th, 2024, just last month, quote, and that's why so many Democratic votes were needed for so many pivotal things, because the Rules Committee was jammed up by contrarians, unquote. So Republicans are contrarians. From Bill Kristol's son-in-law, I tell you, the incestuousness. Matthew Continetti in the National Review, December 21st, again, last month, 2024, quote, Lee Edwards and other young conservatives were contrarians. So, young conservatives of the 1960s and 1950s and 60s were the contrarians. Okay. Mm-hmm. David Ferris in The Week last month, December 20th, 2024, quote, his public profile as a COVID contrarian has made RFK Jr.'s nomination to lead the FDA controversial.
They worked them both in there.
Some quarters, bonus points.
Yep.
Say controversial one more goddamn time.
One more goddamn time. Go ahead. One more goddamn time.
From Medium Magazine, August 22nd, 2021, quote, Andrew Sullivan's tired contrarianism. Where is Andrew Sullivan?
Oh, he's on Substack somewhere. I don't know.
Okay.
He's teaching phrenology at Free Speech University or something.
Yeah, whatever. Okay. Anyone want to guess the title of Christopher Hitchens' 2001 book? You know, he's drunk in heaven or hell or wherever he is. Drunk in the afterlife. It will be his next book. It was Letters to a Young Contrarian.
Yeah.
And from Mike Magazine, April 13th, 2022, quote, Bill Maher and Joe Rogan had a meeting of the contrarian blowhard minds. The two bozos tackled the vaccine, pandemic conspiracy theories, cancel culture, and social justice in their own idiotic way, unquote. Holy shit, everyone is a contrarian, Driftglass. Just like everyone is, I'm an independent.
Everyone's an independent, Blue Gal. That's right.
And being a contrarian means I don't have to answer to liberals.
Right.
When I take a conservative viewpoint.
Right.
Because I'm just being contrarian.
And as I said at the top of this, since we're both writers, we do take words seriously. And choosing contrarian as the title, as the brand you're operating under with all these lovely people is just a terrible idea. It was just a terrible idea because it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean what you think it means. So let's go back to Jennifer Rubin just for a second. This is from her own press release. Quote, I have resigned from the Washington Post effective today. Good for her. Why I left to help launch a vibrant new independent media outlet. Oh, I love that vibrant part. Which is why I'm so thrilled to simultaneously announce this new outlet, The Contrarian, not owned by anybody. The Contrarian will offer daily columns, weekly features, podcasts, and social media from me and fellow pro-democracy contrarians. I didn't realize being pro-democracy was a contrary position, but I guess
apparently it is. That's the point. I think that's the point.
Yeah, but it's kind of lost on... never mind. Many of whom have decamped from corporate media, others who were never a part of it. I am launching this endeavor with my co-founder, Norm Eisen. Founding contributors will include Joyce Vance, Andy Borowitz, Lawrence Tribe, Katie Fang, George Conway, Olivia Juliana, Harry Littman, who recently resigned from the LA Times for reasons similar to mine for leaving the Post, and Asha Rangappa, among other brilliant voices. We will provide fearless and distinctive reported opinion and cultural commentary without phony balance, euphemisms, or gamified political punditry, unquote. And then, this is Jennifer Rubin's inaugural article at The Contrary. It is entitled, It Was the Best of Biden, It Was the Worst of Biden. Took shots at the outgoing competent president in the most gamified political punditry, phony balance way possible. So,
absolutely.
Way to go.
On the one hand, on the other hand, Biden's a failure. On the other hand, he was the greatest success ever. On the other hand, he's old.
Yeah.
It's just
tripped right over it on the way out. First article out of the gate. I know, I understand rockets explode on the launch pad all the time.
Yeah.
But you know what? Rocket technology is not new technology. And this is what I've seen this over and over again, so have you, that the wiring in their heads of all these people who have brand new media companies or relatively new media companies, they can't get past their old operating system. They just can't do it. Now, while we appreciate, pardon me, then Jennifer Rubin takes on Jeff Bezos, and good for her for doing it.
Good for her, yes.
Back to the article. Quote, the need for upstart outlets has never been more acute. The contradiction between, on the one hand, the journalistic obligation to hold the powerful accountable, and on the other, the financial interests of billionaire moguls and corporate conglomerates could not be starker. The Post's own headline last month warned, Trump signals plans to use all levers of power against the media. Press freedom advocates say they fear that a second Trump administration will ramp up pressure on journalists, in keeping with the president-elect's combative rhetoric. And yet, the Post's owner quashed a presidential endorsement for Trump's opponent, forked over $1 million for Trump's inauguration through Amazon, and publicly lauded Trump's agenda, unquote. Yep. And believe me, while we appreciate Ms. Rubin torching her former boss as she walked out the door, and we agree that the need for upstart outlets has never been more acute, I am kind of baffled, except I'm really not baffled at all, at her failure to recognize that there already are lots of such media outlets that have been actively doing what Ms. Rubin says needs to be done for decades. And for the most part, have never gotten even a fraction of the support and acknowledgement that the average never-Trumper just takes as their due, just takes as completely normal and what they should be getting anyway. For example, Daily Kos started as an upstart independent media thingy back in 2000, and it still is. Daily Kos spun off Steve Gilliard's news blog, which remained an upstart independent media thing until Steve passed away in 2007. In 2005, my own blog, the Driftglass blog, was spun off from Steve's, and I have been an upstart independent media thing for going on 20 years now. My lovely and talented wife, Bluegal, started blogging in 2004. and has been an outstanding upstart independent media person ever since. Crooks and Liars, for whom she edits, launched in 2004 as well and has been a beacon of clear, consistent, liberal news coverage. And if contrarian means anything, if it means going against the mob of opinions, Crooks and Liars has been a contrarian outfit all along.
Mm-hmm.
There's Digby's Hullabaloo. There's our friend Bob Seska. There's the Brad blog, the First Draft, Martin Longman at Progress Pond, Show Me Progress, Mock Paper Scissors. Hey guys, hey 10 Grain.
Hey 10 Grain.
No More Mr. Nice blog, The Field Negro, The Rectification of Names, Lawyers, Guns, and Money, Only Sky, Slacktivist, Free Thoughts blog, The Rude Pundit, and all the liberal bloggers that we feature on Mike's Blog Roundup.
Yeah. Hi, Rude Pundit. Hi, No More Mr. Nice blog.
Yeah. These are all people we know and are friends with. And these are all people who've been at the coalface that Ms. Rubin is describing for decades.
Yeah. Left Jabs is another one.
Oh, there's tons of them. There's tons of them. And yet, it's like we need these upstart media outlets more than ever. Well, then fund the ones you already have.
Yeah.
Support the ones you already have. Invite the ones that already existed and have been doing this for decades to your little circle.
It's not like we haven't proven our stick-to-itiveness, right?
Well, and remember, all of us have been doing this at what you might consider to be a rather steep personal and financial cost to us, since we live out of our tip jars. All of us do.
Yep.
And we do this every day for 20 years. We do this. And I'm not saying that it isn't a pleasure to have readers interact with us or listeners interact with our podcast, or that we don't feel it's our duty, or that other people don't work much harder. The average LA resident is having a worse time of it right now than we have ever had on our blogs. Okay, so we're not making equivalences, but we are saying there is an entire universe of liberal bloggers who are still alive and still doing their thing and are awesome and been writing forever, have deep memories, long archives, who could be folded into any one of these outfits, but they're not going to do it because we're liberals. Yeah. And therefore, we are, by definition, contrary.
We are actual upstarts. Yeah. Yes.
So,
I mean, that was the thing with having Marcos Melitsas on Meet the Press, right?
Exactly. Oh, can't have him ever on again.
He's gonna tell, congressmen that they're jerks.
Right. And that one time was the only time.
Yeah.
And we're never going to have him on again. So you have this wealth of talent out there just sitting there, still trying to do the actual literal contrarian thing, which is fight a two-front battle. Fight against the legacy media that wants to slander and ignore and mock us, and the conservative media that just is a fascist conservative propaganda outlet now.
Propaganda machine. Yeah.
And we have been pushing back against, not just pushing back against, but warning this was going to happen, warning this day was coming for decades. So why have liberal blogs, by and large, remained largely free and independent for decades, while almost every other media enterprise that started out claiming to be a brand new independent thing ends up tacking towards the center? And I'm looking at you, Bulwark, and I'm looking at you, Pod Save lads, trying to establish your independent street creds by taking shots at both sides and talking about tribalism and polarization.
Yeah.
It's because of gravity. It's because of political gravity.
And there's two things I'd like to add to this conversation. One is Eric Lipton at the New York fucking Times had the audacity this week to go to Blue Sky and beg for people to share his content.
Yeah.
He said, FYI, folks from Blue Sky, reporters at the New York Times, among other news organizations, are now generating a giant wave of accountability stories about the new Trump era. The word now is doing a lot of lifting right there.
Yeah.
Reading these stories, sharing them, is a form of accountability as well.
Yeah.
Sure. It is a form of participatory democracy, too. Substance matters.
You know what accountability is? It's accountability. It's not passing along New York Times articles. Accountability is voting people out of office and putting them in jail for the criminals. That's accountability.
Yeah. Well, and I replied to him. I was not very nice.
No. You just blocked on Blue Sky, Blue Gal.
I know. I'll get blocked on Blue Sky. I just reminded him and everyone who reads me on Blue Sky, over 7 days last summer, 7 days, you published 142 news articles and 50 opinion pieces about Biden's age.
Right.
And you think we've forgotten about but her emails and miles of column space based on propaganda ship pile Clinton cash?
Oh, yeah.
Beg harder, asshole.
Yeah. And don't forget the Iraq War. Let's not forget that, shall we? Let's not let that slide. No.
But just talking politics here rather than, and the war is political, I understand that. But, this idea of the news organizations are now generating a giant wave of accountability stories about the new Trump era. What were you doing last July, asshole? You were going on 142 articles about Biden's age and forcing him out of the race. Yep.
And congratulations.
Congratulations. And now you want us to think that sharing and reading and subscribing to your content is both accountability and substance.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but sharing Brett Stevens and Pamela Paul garbage is not accountability. It's evidence.
Ross Douthat.
Yeah, it's
David
evidence
Brooks.
You guys still don't understand it. You still don't get it.
Peter Baker.
I forget who I yelled this at. I'm yelling into space, of course. No one's listening. No, the people aren't. But you can't get outside the media bubble when you are the media bubble.
No, well, that's Jennifer Rubin. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And that was the other thing I wanted to mention, which is, good on Jennifer Rubin for walking out on the Washington Post. Good on her for doing that. And I understand she's got to keep her name out there, and this is a good way to do it.
Sure.
But, she's 62, Norm Eisen is 64, the market is up. Most of the staffers at the Substack have contracts with MSNBC.
Uh-huh.
They are not putting their condos at risk doing this.
No.
And you and I, can barely afford the vet bills at this point. Bosco's vet bill. Sorry for yelling. Bosco's vet bill was a lot.
It was. And we don't have to replace our house.
No,
we're
right. We're compared to what a lot of people are going through right now. We understand.
We're privileged and we understand it.
We don't mean to whine, but honestly.
But what we are trying to say is there is extant right now a very large number of very good writers who've been very right about a lot of things for a long time, who are sitting there without any material or media support from people who are now claiming that we desperately need people just like this to fight against the horde, to fight against the fascist uprising.
When you weren't there, when we weren't there when it mattered. You were not there when it mattered.
Exactly. You were fighting us when it mattered. You were telling us we were crackpots and we're alarmists and telling us to sit down and shut up, that David Brooks is right and all of you liberal tards are wrong. Mm-hmm. And it turned out we weren't wrong. And I do understand, you don't want to set your party because you would like to contain the conversation. The conversation should begin in 2016 and forward. You don't want to talk about how things got the way they are. And there's no other diagnostic universe from your car to your doctor that doesn't first try to figure out what went wrong before they figure out the cure. And we're sitting here going, we can tell you what went wrong with the GOP. We know. We documented it. We watched it happen. We wrote it all down. It's in our archives. And it's like, no. We would really not like to talk about that. That is not a subject. And if you'd like to get blocked by someone on Blue Sky, as well as Twitter, just start talking about life before 2016.
Yeah. And I was thinking about that with the Jimmy Carter funeral.
Yeah.
People applauding, those who snubbed Trump at the funeral.
Yeah.
Why didn't they snub George Bush? Why didn't they snub Mrs. Pence?
Yeah.
Who said that, her daughter would just have to suck it up if she got pregnant.
Yeah.
These people are not good people. And there's a whole lot of Iraqi civilian blood spilled on that funeral floor.
Yeah. Well, and I understand the need to make alliances. But you know what?
Yeah.
The strategy that was tried 2 or 3 times where we're just going to sit down, we're not going to be who we are. We're not going to be Democrats. We're not going to be goddamn Democrats. We're going to try to find a way to fit Liz Cheney into the picture. And we're not going to talk about the Democratic Party. We're going to talk about a pro-democracy movement. Talk
about people whose clothes are sewn together with the blood of dead Iraqi civilians. Yes.
Well, and the idea that we're going to call it a pro-democracy movement because the people we're trying to recruit find being around liberals too icky.
Yeah.
And being around Democrats, because they've hated Democrats their entire life. They've made a living out of hating Democrats their entire life. They can't sit with Democrats and say you were right all along. So we're going to have to create a brand new screen for them to hide behind, and we're going to call that the pro-democracy movement. Yeah. And behind that screen, don't worry, we're going to take shots at the left too. You won't be, we're out there all alone. We're not going to just be pounding away on conservatives. We're going to take shots at the left too. Don't worry. Joe Biden did some good things, but he also did some bad things. That should make you feel comfortable sitting in the center. And if you're looking, and that's what I mean by political gravity.
Yeah. Yep.
It feels like they're going after the same audience that everybody else has been going after. The imaginary center, the sensible center that doesn't listen to anybody, that never reads the news, that for some reason have political opinions and can be persuaded or cajoled or debated into siding with us. Maybe the 11th time that this has been tried and failed, it'll work. I don't know. But it seems to me short-sighted to ignore the fact that all around you, there are really good writers and really good podcasters. And we didn't mention podcasters on here, but Hal Sparks is amazing.
Yeah.
Put him in front of 10 million people, not 1,000 people on Saturdays. And let him run. Put a nickel in him and let him run for 12 hours. He's really good at this sort of thing. There are lots of people who are good at this sort of thing. And to sideline them because they were right, and it's embarrassing to you that they were right, so you'd rather not have them around, is against the very thing you say you want to accomplish. Yep. Which is tell the truth, hold people accountable, and do it in a way that's blunt and clear and contrarian. Anyway. Obviously, there's no news roundup today since we're tired and we're about an hour into this, and my voice is...
We're large mammals who want to hibernate is what we are.
We do. We're hungry.
But hey, feel free to write to both of us at proleftpodcast@gmail.com. We do love hearing from you. Be aware that if you write us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service. Go, postal unions! Letter on the air unless you say otherwise. Fire to joy.
Fire to joy. Don't forget our gourmet coffee guidelines. If you can afford to buy an espresso-based beverage for yourself, sling one our way. This isn't charity. This is our job, and it's been going on 15 years now. If you can spare $5 a month or more, please spare $5 a month or more at patreon.com/proleftpod.
And may I say, those of you who are sending in $15 or $5.15, we see you and
we do
appreciate the anniversary commemoration. Thank you.
We see all of you. We get all the mail, even the stuff that tells us we're doofuses who should shut down this podcast and go, soak our heads.
But we don't get too many of those.
Well, we read them all.
Yeah, we do read them all.
By the way, don't try to put that in the comment section of my blog because I'll delete it. I'm a tyrant. I delete lots of comments on my blog because I don't really want to hear from David Brooks' burner account. I don't care what he has to do. Please also share our show on social media. Like and subscribe and all that other stuff that you know how to do. If you love this podcast, try to get someone else to listen to it. Just turn it up really loud and get really close to them. And they'll ask you, hey, what's that you're listening to? What's the Professional Left? Don't you listen to it? Well, I know. I've never heard of such a thing. Well, here, I brought 2 earbuds. Perhaps you'd like to listen to it with me. Then, 20 years later, when you're married and have 4 kids, you can thank us very much then. So, and thank you for doing that.
I love you, Driftglass.
I love you too, Blue. I'm getting a little punchy.
It's a hard week, and you're so funny.
I'm just tired, and I'm getting punchy, and I need food immediately.
Oh, it is dinner time, isn't it? Hey, but before we go, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Well, Bluegal, since you mentioned it, the Internet Kitties say if you want to really understand contrarianism, just tell a cat no.
Let's think about living. Think about living. Let's think about loving. Think about loving. Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the popping and the lovey-dovey. Let's forget about the whining and the crying, the shooting and the dying, and the fellow with a switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
The Professional Left podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2024-25, GGBG Productions.